Hi guys, my name is Roger, and ever since I was a teenager, I've always wanted to build my own car. I started this channel to see if an average person, like me, can design and build their own mid-engine car. If you like what you see here in my videos, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you know someone who you think might be interested in my videos, please share the videos with them. I'll be adding a new video every week, and with that out of the way, let's get started with this week's video.
First off, I want to apologize for the length of this video. It's almost 30 minutes long. I was on vacation this week and had quite a bit of extra time to work on the project and wanted to share all of it with you guys. This week we're going to be joining the two sections that we made in the past week, the cabin area center section of the car and the lower rear section of the car. We're going to be joining those together and welding them up and all the components that brace the two together once they're assembled as one piece. You can see me here in the video. I am setting the two pieces back up on the table together. I am clamping everything in position, measuring, make sure everything is square and lined up down the chalked center line on the table. Once I'm happy with the position of everything, I clamp all the tubes down in position with the wood clamps and the ratchet straps to hold everything so it can't move while I'm welding these two pieces together. You can see me here with a level, also checking, make sure everything is level. I know that the table is level. I've measured it on both ends in the center, so now I'm just checking the tubes to make sure that they're all level with the table, nothing is out of square. And I finally have everything clamped down where I'm happy with it, so I start tack welding the two pieces together. Yeah, once I have these two pieces tack welded together, I realize that one of the tubes and some of the clamps are in my way to weld these up solid, so I reposition it on the table, moving the clamps in the way it's clamped to the table, so I'll have plenty of room to weld these two assemblies together permanent. I know it's kind of hard to see exactly what I'm doing from the camera angle, so I wanted to give you guys a close-up view of where I'm working and what exactly I'm doing here on the back end of the car, joining it to the midsection, welding the two components together. Obviously welding the two components individually, welding this metal plate cap onto the end of this large tube as to close it off, and as an area to weld this brace on. I'll be welding these caps on the top here, seal off the openings in the tubes, and the roll cage, roll bar, top roll bar will attach onto these plates. This side is pretty much welded in. You can see just starting on this side. Plates here ready to weld on, cover up. This is the piece of the angle cut gusset that welds in. Oops, sorry about that. And we'll go ahead and get started welding those into place. You can see me here exchanging out the argon tank or argon bottle for the welder. I'm on my second bottle of argon. The first one was a smaller bottle and didn't last very long at all, so I traded it in on a little bit larger argon bottle or tank, so hopefully it'll last longer. So I just finished welding the cap or plate on the end of that large tube. Now I'm fitting that diagonal brace that goes over to stabilize the rear end. And you can see me, I'm test fitting and then walking over to the belt sander, sanding and fitting and sanding and fitting till I get it exactly like I want it to fit. Here you'll see me working on the two gussets that go in the back corners of the frame between the midsection and the rear section. Just a 45-degree gusset for strength. I am cutting those out and sanding and getting them to fit exactly like I want them to fit. And I finally get this gusset to fit to where I'm happy with it, so I start tack welding it into position. And then once it's tack welded on where it won't move, I go ahead and weld it in solid. Here I am cutting and sanding and fitting the gusset for the other side of the car, and once I'm happy with the fit on that gusset, I will weld it into position also. Sometimes it's hard to reach exactly where you need to weld, so you have to kind of slide yourself into really tight positions and awkward stances just to reach what you're trying to get to. And I finally have the other gusset completely welded in. Now I'm welding 4 small tubes. They're 1 inch by 1.5 inch rectangular tubes. There's 4 of them across here, and they are in the rear cabin area of the car. And this is where the fuel tank sits and will attach to once it's complete. The engine, the front of the engine, where the pulleys and belt are, nest up in between the fuel tanks. It's separated into 2 halves, and it'll have a crossover tube between them. And I finally have the 2 sections welded together. Now I'm going to flip this assembly upside down on the table so I can get to these smaller tubes easier to weld them. The weldment here, this assembly, is getting heavier, but it's still manageable by one person pretty easily. Once the frame is completely assembled, the front section is attached and the aluminum floor is installed. It should weigh around 600 pounds without all the suspension components. I want to thank you guys for tuning into this week's video. We're getting close to the end here. Especially thank you to those who watched the entire 30-minute video. I know it was a little long. I apologize for that. Here in just a minute, I'm going to give you a close-up view and explain exactly what all we've accomplished this week and let you see it up close and personal. Wanted to take a minute and show you where I'm at. Just finished a kind of a critical procedure, joining the lower rear frame part to the cabin area mid frame. It's completely welded in.
Both sides have these corner gussets for stability. Capped off both rear tubes so there's no openings. And welded in both of these gussets here for strength. And welded in these 4 tubes here. This is where the fuel tank will sit on those tubes there. And once I finished all the welding, strapped it back down to the table using the center line, the chalked center line on the table to make sure everything's square and level before I start adding the next step, which will be welding in the 2 upper tubes that connect to this post. For the upper suspension, they're actually a little longer than these lower tubes. And I've got to make a fixture to hold everything into position while I start tack welding those on. And there'll be a couple of vertical tubes running between those 4 tubes. And once all of that is in, the rear of the car will be finished frame-wise. There's still a lot of steel components have to be fabricated and bolted on to the frame to attach the suspension. I'm going to make all those attach points out of steel instead of aluminum just for strength. But that is where we are at. We had a pretty productive day today.